All right, hey, Chef Anthony here, and I'm going to show you a couple different ways on how to fabricate wogs. But before I do that, I want to go over what is a wog and what kind of tools do I need. A wog is what you would call commercially a chicken without giblets. And that means just any chicken that's broken down whole, skin on, but doesn't have any giblets inside. With that, some of the tools that I like to use whenever I'm breaking these down, I like using a boning knife. I like two here. I have a thinner one and a thicker one, but I also like just having a backup. That way, if I'm doing a lot of these, if they get dull, I can switch it out with another one. I always use my trusty honing steel to keep my knives nice and honed. You can use shears. Those make breaking through any of the bones considerably easier because these are very small bones on wogs. But also, as students, you should be using your cut glove whenever you are breaking down these chickens. When you do that, you will put your glove on and then put your disposable glove over top. That way you keep any of the juices from the chicken from getting your cut glove. All right, before we get into cutting these, I want to show you two different things that you want to look out for whenever you have your chickens. All right, so we have two wogs here that both of these have defects that I'd be looking for whenever I'm taking them out of my case. Every time I take them out of case, I always give my chickens kind of a feel with my hands. I'm feeling for any kind of broken bones or anything that might be a surprise whenever I'm going to break these down. But this chicken that I have here, I noticed there is some bruising, probably from a broken blood vessel in this area. With this, what I'm gonna end up doing is just cutting this wing off whenever I go to butcher this, and the rest of this bird is completely fine. But I'll take this off and I will just pitch this one wing. The next thing that you want to look for, and I find this is the best time when taking them out of the case, is if you have any feathers that may have come off in the defeathering process. You want to definitely get them out during the butcher and not whenever you want to go and cook these. But all you do to remove any of these feather pieces is grab the skin, and then you just pull them out. Sometimes you can do it one at a time, sometimes you can grab multiple, sometimes you have to bend them a little bit. But you want to pull out the feather at the base. All right, we have a nice defeathered bird. So the first thing I'm going to show you is a really basic way, and it's called the spatchcock method. And all the spatchcock is actually cutting out the backbone and laying this flat. So this is where I would take my shears. You've got a nice bone hook there so that it doesn't slide around. And you take your bird, have it upside down, breasts down, neck facing towards you, and you just cut down the spine. And the neck on the other side as well. I'm saving all of my bones off screen so that I can save them for stock. The benefits to this is it now takes your bird and it makes it all flat, one level. This is going to speed up the cooking process considerably. Another thing you can do to take this one step further, but not necessary, is you can take your knife, you can etch where the sternum is there, and kind of give that a crack, or even a snip with your knife to break through that, and that's going to help your spatchcock lay even flatter. But like I said, this is a great method because it now takes the height of your bird, takes it down, makes it all about the same thickness, gives you a nice even cooking for this method. So this is a spatchcocked chicken. Up next, this is taking the spatchcock method and taking it one step further, where you cut your chicken down, And then instead of just snipping here, you would cut it in half. You can also just use your knife with this as well, depending on how sharp it is. And now you have chicken halves. This makes a really nice large serving for one person. But from every wog, you get 2 chicken halves. That's just removing the backbone and then splitting it right at that, in between the 2 breasts, where that sternum is. So we've done a spatchcock and a chicken half. All right, this wog, I'm gonna take it through and I'm gonna show you every step from the 8 cut to the 12 cut, all on one bird. And you can stop with whatever amount of pieces you would like with that. The first thing I do is I separate the skin here. Just slice that very gently. I'm not cutting any meat, but I take my legs and thighs and I just pop this joint out. Do the same thing on the other side, where I put my fingers behind the leg bone, put fingertips at the backbone, and then I just pry that bone out, right? That way there's no cutting through of bone. These bones are now separated from the backbone and make for very easy removal. I cut my skin, not cutting any meat yet, and I reveal the oyster to myself. That is right here, like kind of the dimples in the back of the bird. You always want to have those because that's a great tender cut that you don't want to leave that on the carcass, because that's just wasted money. I do an initial cut at the beginning of the oyster, and then I dig my finger through that so that it's pushing away from the bone. So you can see there is a little cavity where the oyster would be, and it is connected to my thigh. And then I just run my knife down the backbone of the bird, and I release my leg and thigh. I do the exact same thing from the other side, whereas I look for that oyster where it starts, I make an initial cut. I can see it right there where my pointer finger is, and I just take my finger in there and I kind of scrape that cavity. The oyster is now released, and I run my knife down that backbone. So we have our nice thigh right there. We have our upper portion of our chicken. We take our wings, and I like to go from the back of the wing, and I will do a cut there. I'll do a cut about here, and then I like to go here because I don't want to cut too much of my breast away, but I'm just looking to release my wings. Wing is released. And I do the exact same thing now on the other side. So I'm just going for where that wing joint is. Other wing is released. Bring my breast back up to me. I like to smooth out the skin. That way it's nice and even. And then I go and I'll just do an initial cut that I'm looking right now just to kind of cut the skin away. That way I can see where these 2 breasts separate. There is some hard deposit there that you don't want to really cut through, but you just cut down straight through your chicken breast until you get to where the wishbone would be. And I'm just looking to get to the bottom of the breast there. I'm not cutting through the rib cage. The rib is still intact, but I've just opened that up. I can see where the tender is, my breast, and I like to hold this breast just like so, pinched between my thumb and my middle finger, and I will take my knife and I will go underneath where my finger is pinched and come out on the other side, and then I just carefully swipe my knife up and out so the bottom of my breast is detached, and then I go and I release the top of the breast. So this is your breast and tender, and then I do the exact same thing. Here's that cartilage. Real hard, you don't want to cut through that. You can easily cut through it with these sharp knives, but you don't want to, because that won't go away whenever you're cooking. Like I said, you just gently cut down through this. Once you get to that wishbone, that Y at the end, you can very easily cut through that as well. You just want to make sure that you don't, or if you do, that you remove it from your finished product. You do that same grab, and now I cut through the top of my bird instead of where I would do the tail first. I go through between my thumb and my pointer, or my middle finger, and I release the top, and then I just release the bottom. So we've got our breasts and tenders there. We have our carcass here. This is where your wishbone is, right here. If you always want to check your breast to make sure that you have that still intact and not in the breast, because that is something that can very easily get stuck right around here, and then you don't notice it, it goes to the diner, they eat their breast, and they have a bone stuck in their throat. Then you have a lawsuit, and you really don't want that. I'll go now, and I'm going to just kind of trim up the skin on these breasts. So that way, whenever I go to sear them, they are nice and crispy and not a whole lot of extra skin that's unnecessary. Too much skin there, it's not going to render and crisp up properly. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is take this to an 8 cut. Right now you'd call this a 6 because the tenders are still on there. But I go and I just take it and I separate my tender from my breast. So where's one tender and breast? There's a second tender and breast. So right now, this is now your 8 cut. 2 tenders, 2 legs, 2 breasts, 2 wings. You can just leave this as it is, or you can go and you can take this into a 10 cut, and that is really separating your legs and thighs. What you want to do is you look through your leg and thigh, there's this white segment there in between the 2 muscles, and that is right where the joint is. So you almost want to cut on that, or just even right behind that towards the drum, and you're cutting straight down through. Then you get a really nice clean separation. You're not cutting through any bone, you're just cutting through the joint, and you have now a thigh and a leg. Then you can do the exact same thing on your other piece. Make sure to make that open to you. And you have your white membrane right there, and you're cutting right behind that towards the thigh, and you have, or the drum, and you have your thigh and your drum. So here we go. This is our 10 cut. We have 2 drums, 2 thighs, 2 wings, 2 breasts, and 2 tenders. You can now take this to a 12 cut and have them all be more uniform in those 12 pieces, because you'll notice these breasts are much larger than everything else. So with this, I like to remove the skin. As you can see, it just pulls right off very easily. You can make sure that there isn't any kind of area like that. You got just nice 2 breasts right here. Then you can take it, you can notice thinner in the tail, thicker in the top. So you want to cut at the top towards a bias. And now this, while this is smaller in area, it's also a little bit thicker. But these are both about the same size if you were to weigh them on a scale. So now we have our 12 cut. Once again, 2 drums, 2 thighs, 2 wings, 4 pieces of breast, and 2 tenders. That is our 8 through 12 cut. All right, the last cut I'm going to show you is called the airline cut. It's also known as Pierre cut. And that is, it's all about the breasts. So we're just going to take off our legs and thighs the same way we do all of our other ones, where I am separating the bone from the thigh bone from the backbone. I am taking my oyster with my thigh, and I'm getting both of these legs off my bird. All right, now before I remove my wings, very important, this is the airline or the Pierre cut. So you see your wing, you cut between the flat and the drum, and you are removing the flat portion of your wing. Same thing with the other side. Cutting down and removing just the flats. So the rounds are still on there, they are still attached. We're going to leave this attached to our breast. So the same way whenever I would release my breasts before, I make sure that my skin is nice. I go and I'm just going to cut through the skin just so I can see where that sternum is in the bird. I see it, and once again I'm cutting down just to get to the rib cage. I'm not looking to cut through the rib cage. I then I pinch my breast the same way I do with all my other cuts, and I release the bottom of this breast. I cut through, but I'm not going to cut through in one swipe here. I now have the entire breast and wing in my hand. I know where it's at, and this is part of the wishbone. I want to cut so that the breast does not have the wishbone, but I want to get down to where the wing bone separates from the backbone, and I want to make sure that that wing bone goes with my breast. So as you can see here, I've got my beautiful breast. I've got my wing bone right here. I got a little extra skin that I'm removing from the top and the bottom. But this is your airline breast. You can take this one step further, and that is, you take your knife and you cut this meat off. I like to go in a circle. And then you can use the back of your knife and you just kind of scrape this meat towards the end. And then you just pull this off. And now you have a nice little bone here that's going to stick out and just be presentation. The only real benefit to this is presentation. It does look good. It does give you some height to your dish. But you do just lose the round of your wing. So me personally, I don't love this, but I understand the classical presentation and the need for this, and a little bit of extra skill that this one might take. You want to make sure your bone is nice and clean, it's still connected, and you've got your nice airline or Pierre breast there. And depending on what you choose, you can leave the tender on, or you can pull that right off. It depends on what your overall goal is. And that is your Pierre breast. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other one. And just removing that other tender. So there we go. Two beautiful airline or Pierre breasts, ready to sear up and make nice. Two tenders, two legs and thighs, two kind of wing dings. That's a chef's snack right there. And then last, we can separate our legs and thighs if we choose to, or we can leave them whole. Airline breast. Hey, maybe you like your thighs boneless. I'm gonna show you a quick, easy way on how to debone your thighs. You have your thigh, you look at it. You see that you have your bone. It's going this direction, almost where my knife is right there. Same thing on this one. The easiest way that I do this is I take my knife, I see where this bone goes, and I just do a light cut through there. I give myself someplace to put my fingers, and I just get underneath the bone, and I kind of roll my knife cutting underneath the bone, and I just roll the bone right out. Whenever you do this, you do have to look for any kind of cartilage on the end and just cut the cartilage away. But that is your nice boneless thigh. I'm gonna show you that one more time. Take your thigh, do a shallow cut here to get to where your bone is, and then you're just kind of rolling the meat away from where your fingers are. This one's being ignorant. All right. And now once again, you just want to make sure there's a little bit of cartilage here that's at the end of the bone. My knife is a little bit too sharp for that. And I just want to cut away the cartilage, and now you have another very nice couple bites of boneless thigh. All right, and now I've got a few more chickens to break down, and I'm just gonna break them all down, and you can watch me as you choose.